Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at CUAround event. This is the first one that we're ever doing, so thank you so much for joining us. The first one is quite deep, so it's life and death as an expat in a pandemic. So today I'm joined with Trishna Mystery, who's going to share her story with us. So the reason that we're doing this event is that because we feel that there have been a lot of people in our situation, Trishna, who have had a baby and lost loved ones at the same time. I mean, I don't think there's anyone in the world that hasn't been impacted by COVID-19. It's literally become the air that we breathe. So there's no one it hasn't touched in some shape and form. So what I want to do, Trishna, is give you this platform to share your story and how it impacted you. And later we can be joined by Dr. Samaa, who will give her input and views on how we as expats can deal with grief living alone without family. I want to thank everybody for joining, and please ask questions. You'll see an option where you can ask questions, answer some polls, interactive. And Trishna, please, go ahead. Tell me how you felt when you first found out that you were pregnant last year and how COVID-19 impacted you.
To be honest, it was really strange because all your life you think, oh, when I get pregnant, I'll be around my family, you just have these, growing up, you'll be like, oh, my mum will be making me this, my mother-in-law will be making this, and you'll be surrounded by family. But it was so different. And I thought, oh, pregnancy, I found out I was pregnant in May. So I thought, oh, by, December, when he's born, well, when Ruben was born, because we weren't sure what it was, when Ruben was born, I thought, oh, it'll be fine by then. So I honestly didn't think it would be still like this. Like, how did you feel? Did you feel the same, or were you anxious and worried? I just didn't even feel worried or anxious, nothing.
So this was actually my second pregnancy.
Yeah.
I felt like I knew what I was gonna be, how it's gonna be for me, but I didn't. With my first pregnancy, I was in the UK with my family, and I had all the excitement, and I was able to talk to everybody. We were able to come and go to each other's houses. In this one, no one saw me grow my bump. Nobody knew how I felt in the first trimester. No one saw me do my shopping, what I bought for my baby. I mean, I couldn't even go out. So I couldn't even go out and buy anything for my baby. So this time round, the second time, it was definitely different. It was almost like I'm pregnant, but I'm not as well. I mean, my whole life just carried on like I wasn't pregnant because I didn't get a chance to enjoy it. I didn't get to do the whole baby moon, the shopping, the preparing. We were just cooped up inside. So the experience was definitely different for me being in a pandemic, but I was super excited. It took me a long time actually to have my firstborn. So to have my second pregnancy so soon after, I was really excited, and I couldn't wait to share it with my family. I couldn't wait to have them come over and see me, and for me to take a trip to the UK. So it was a good feeling. Even though it was in lockdown, I still felt really, really good and happy. I was really looking forward to it actually. So definitely different, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been until obviously later on down the year. Some people watching here will know that we did lose someone in our family, so things did change for me. And Trishna, the reason I reached out to you is because I know that you went through a very similar situation. So please share your story.
Well, when I was pregnant, it was pretty much the same, to be honest. I was trying to find like the strength to have the light under the tunnel, thinking, well, it's fine. They're going to miss the pregnancy, but they'll be here when Ruben's born. And like I was like waiting for my grandma, like who we're talking about, who passed away sadly. I thought, oh, they'll be here and everybody will be here. So I just thought, you know what? Maybe they'll miss the pregnancy part, but when like my baby's here, I'll have my family around. I'll have like, it'll just be like back to normal. I thought this COVID would not still be here, but lo and behold, like he's 4 months old yesterday, and still no sign of like anybody coming. Like my family have like cancelled like plans to come nearly like 3 times now, and it just feels like a never-ending tunnel. So now it's like, well, they've missed the pregnancy, they've missed like Ruben being born, they've missed him developing, they've missed the newborn stage now, they're missing his like early, like, you know, few months. Like, I just feel like, what else? Like, I just feel like it's not fair, because on one hand, I'm grateful and happy, because from a lot of my friends and family, I don't know if you because if you experience this as well, being home for your first pregnancy, did you find that you had a lot of visitors and it was overwhelming and you just wanted your time with the baby and it was too much? Like, because with friends, when I've spoken, or with family, they were like, oh, we wish we had our own time. So one plus side is I feel like I've had that quality time with me, Nick and Ruben, and because it's only been us, and when I need to hang the clothes and Nick's doing his work, Ruben's learned to play on his own, he's learned to be independent, he's not needy, he doesn't need to be picked up. At night time, there's not someone always there to, like, you know, rock him to sleep, so sometimes we just put him down, and he's learned to put himself to sleep, which I feel a bit sorry about, because he's not been spoiled like by the grandparents and family, but then also it's not as hard for me and Nick, so it comes hand in hand. I don't know how you felt like in comparison.
So I've had a baby, my firstborn there. She was born in the UK, so everyone was there for my pregnancy, everyone was there for the birth, and she was absolutely spoiled rotten, and it was definitely overwhelming with visitors. So I you know, you don't think on your firstborn how it's going to be. So I had people coming and visiting straight away, and it was nice. I mean, you know, you do want to see people, you do want to share that joy. And when people came, you know, and they were picking up my daughter and spoiling her and giving her lots of cuddles, it did feel good, because I felt incredibly proud of myself, incredibly proud to have such a, you know, a daughter here with me. And then it went from one extreme to the other, because when I got pregnant here as an expat, there was literally nobody here. It was just me and my husband, and nobody saw anything. And I did feel it when I had my baby. I just felt like, all right, I've had the baby, I'm going to bring him home, and that's it. Like, no one saw his first smile, no one saw his little giggle. You know, I say to my husband now, oh look, he's not wearing, he can't fit into this baby girl anymore. He's into these baby girls now, and
That's
nobody
when
knows.
that's when it hits me. That's when it hits me as well.
So it does hurt me, and well, not hurt me, it does make me feel like, you know, my family back home are missing out. They're not getting to share this joy. But these are the sacrifices that we made when we decided to become expats, right? So we always knew that our family will grow as an expat. So we knew this would happen. But I think once you're in that situation and you feel that void, that absence, it is quite difficult. But, you know, we're very lucky that we live in a very technical, like, ignore me,
No, I
and
know
a
what you mean.
technologically advanced era.
Yeah, but do you not find
But
that
we can
when
do Zoom
people...
calls and video calls, and
Yeah,
you know,
but do you
keep
know
in
what?
touch.
Still, like, people like see Ruben, and they're like, oh wow, he's really big for 3 months, whatever. And you know, when you see him, like, he's actually really small and he's really tiny, so you don't get the perspective. That's one thing that I find. Yeah, like, it's amazing having video call, but the perspective is like not there.
Yeah.
And like, he's still actually really tiny. He's still really small. He's still not like, his head's not like fully supported, so he's still little. But people don't see that, and
See
now,
that.
yeah, it's just really like, it's really like rubbish, because, you know, like, I'm one of the first, like, my friends to have a baby. They were all like very excited, and you know, they did everything to make it special, like had surprise baby showers, but again, like, virtual and stuff. And you know, that's what means a lot, because it shows that even though you're far, yeah, a lot of people actually went out their way, because obviously having it virtual is really difficult. You're not just meet at one spot and then kind of roll with it. You have to organise it on Zoom. You have to make sure that all the games, everybody's joining and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that was really nice. But again, like, I've not seen my parents nearly, it'll be in August, it'll be like 2 years. February, so it'll be a year and a half. Are you there, Mandy?
I'm still there, yeah.
Your video's gone off then.
Oh.
So yeah, that's like been like hardest part of like pregnancy. Thankfully, for my pregnancy, I wasn't like like full of like raging hormones, because I know that it can affect people emotionally, it can affect people mentally, and I feel like it didn't affect me in that manner. But I felt like if I was feeling quite sensitive, like I think it would have affected me a lot, like mentally, and I feel for people who have been struggling like that.
So pregnancy is already hard as it is. I mean, yeah, we do have the hormones. It gets very difficult to carry a baby. And then for us, Trishna, it was incredibly different because one, we were going through it in a pandemic. And then I think for both of us, we had a bombshell hit. You know, it was literally in an, you know, unexpected life event that hit us. So I know, Trishna, from following you on Instagram, you lost your grandma literally months before you gave birth. And I remember watching your stories on Instagram. I mean, we didn't really know each other too well. You know, I just follow you because you're a really good mom blogger. And I remember seeing that. And then as time went on, as my, you know, pregnancy was coming towards my end, I also lost my father-in-law at the same time. So I remember thinking at that time, because I knew how much it impacted me, where I had so much to look forward to, and I was so excited, and I was super excited to share this this news with my family. That happened, and that really changed everything for me. And when I saw what happened, you know, that you went through the similar thing, I just thought to myself, like, I didn't really think much of it until I was put in that situation. And you know, I couldn't imagine how difficult it would be to have a baby and welcome a baby when you have just lost, and you know, someone so dear to you, that you're still, as expats, not even started to grieve yet. Because you don't, right? You're not there. You're so far away. You're not there sitting with your family talking about memories, and you know, we're not able to hug each other. We're not able to sit up all night talking. You're just here living your life. So
It's just
if I
hard
can,
because
yeah.
sorry, what you're saying.
What I wanted to ask you, Trishna, how did you find out your grandma had passed away?
Well, what happened was, well, from the beginning, like my grand's lived with us since like I was born. Like she's always lived in our house. So and my grandma, granddad, and my great grandma. So I've been brought up in like a very like family like home. So I had my granddad, grandma, great grandma, my mum and dad, and my brother.
Yeah.
And like, you know, even at nursery and stuff, like my grandma used to take me or my granddad. So it was never like my mum and dad, because my mum and dad have had an off license shop when I was really young. So my mum used to run that. My dad used to be an engineer, so he used to do like shift work. So we were always around our grandparents like all the time. So really, that's all I've known. You know what I mean? My grandparents, everybody's like, oh, I understand losing a grandma, but I'm like, you don't if you've not lived with them, because you create a different bond. It's like a mum. Like I remember when I used to go to school, she used to like wake up, get my porridge ready, do my bed, and I used to be upstairs and everything was done. Everybody's like, oh, you're so spoiled. And it's funny to say now, because it's like my mum does that for Ruben. She's like, oh, do this and do that. And I'm like, I used to tell my grandma off, do you know what I mean? So you have that different bond. So when I found out that she passed away, it was really difficult. So, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Take your time. It's okay. It's just us.
I think it's more harder because when I told her, she said that I'm really looking forward to you having children, because I was like in Gujarati we call it like Valley, so like you're my favorite, which everybody knew about it. So even all my friends are like, oh, you're your grandma's like favorite, like everybody knew that. So when I told her, she's like, oh, that's all I've been waiting for, like, you know, like all her like life, when ever since I've been like growing up. So that's the hardest thing. And then she said, oh, I won't go until I get a chance to play with you, baby. So I think that's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because I remember speaking to you a couple of days ago, and you was talking about your grandma, And I remember you saying that even though, was it 86? She was 86.
82.
Even 82, even though she was 82, she was extremely fit, extremely
Do you know what? It's not even
healthy.
that, Mandy. It's just the fact that we didn't. So she used to go to India every year.
Mm,
She used to go in October after Diwali, and then she used to come back in March. So the pandemic hit really bad in like February, March. So that's when it was like rife in India. So she said, I'm not comfortable with traveling. So we were like, whatever you're comfortable with. Then the weather got hot. We got her an AC unit, and she said, I'm happy in my house in India. So we're like, fine. And then 2 days before we booked her flight for her return in September, she passed away. But the 2 weeks before then, like, I know people who have had COVID have struggled with like breathing and struggled with, staying alive. She was actually fighting in hospital for 2 weeks.
yeah,
So she actually fought like so much. Like, every day it was like we had phone calls and it was like gut wrenching, or what's happened now, our oxygen's like this, and it was awful. And being pregnant, like everybody's like, oh Trish, like I think they tried to protect me, saying everything will be fine kind of thing. But when you just you just know. And like my
yeah,
grandma's never been in hospital her whole life, and I
yeah,
thought this must be serious because she's not on any medication, she's not ill for any matter. So then I was like worried, but then people are like, oh no, you're pregnant, you can't be worried, you can't feel emotional because it affects the baby. So you're like, I'm 1 minute like a mother figure to me is like in hospital in a different country, I'm not seeing her for a year,
yeah,
and it's like, what do you do? Then second of all, I'm holding this child, which I'm feeling like awful about because I can't be like uplifted, happy and positive because I'm so worried about my gran. So like, you get the palpitations, you get anxiety. And in the first few days when she was in hospital, the doctors were really good. They video called her and she said, look, don't worry about me, I'm fine. So like after that, I just held on to it. So then 2 weeks after, every day when we were getting the calls from family, when we found out she passed away, it was like the worst feeling ever because, like, when you hear that, oh, I'll be okay, but to be honest, like, we didn't want her to suffer. So that's
yeah,
the main thing that she said. She always said, look, I pray to God every day that I get taken. So it's not the fact that she had like a bad life. She had great grandchildren. She had a massive family. We have a really big loving family, and everybody's like really close. But it's the fact that she was in a different country. She was away from all of her kids, her grandkids, her great grandkids for like a year. Then on
yeah,
top of that, she passed away, and they cremated her body that day. Then like my dad's cousin, his son, and his brothers, those two people, they did the funeral service. The ashes were sent like to like a holy place, and the puja was done. But the family still haven't had a chance to grieve, to
say
like.
goodbye. Mm,
So I feel like when I go back to the UK, I still feel like she's going to be there. So I don't think it's going to hit me yet because her bedroom is opposite mine, and she'll just be
yeah,
like, "Last night you didn't say good night to me and goodbye." She's like, "Oh, you never came." And I was like, "Oh, sorry, I was like tired and stuff." Or when I used to come from uni, she's like, "Oh, you're sleeping in my room tonight?" Like, like I was really close to my gran, so it's like a different kind of bond. Like I used to come from university,
yeah,
laundry, and like I used to go to sleep because obviously I used to pull all nighters, used to study, I used to come back from my exams so tired. When I used to wake up in the morning, check my suitcase, all my clothes were folded and ironed and washed in my suitcase. Like I was so spoiled, like unbelievable. But it wasn't like spoiled as in, oh, I got this and I got that. It was like spoiled with like love, do you
loved,
know what I mean?
loved.
So
Mm,
I think, like, even when, I know this is really crazy to say, but like me and my friends used to go out and at night time, and we used to have drinks, and my grandma used to join us and have drinks with us, and she used to go to bed and we used to go out. Like my friends knew her, everybody had a relationship with her.
yeah,
So I think that is the hardest thing, that she played such a massive role in everybody's life that she touched, even if she just met them the once. So yeah, like she just was really looking forward to coming here to like seeing Ruben, and obviously she's never going to be able to do that.
mm. I mean, I think with grandparents, especially in my family, and what I remember, your grandparents become mum and dad. because mum and dad go to work. So they have you, they go to work, and your granddad and grandma play mum and dad. And so I can only imagine what that must have been like for you, you know, to lose not just your grandma, but like a mum figure as well. Because it is quite similar, you know, your grandma will be there for you to do all the things that maybe your mom wouldn't, because, you know, they're off working and they're off looking after your other brother and sister, and, you know, life consumes them just like it does with us now. But grandparents have that special kind of time, that special kind of love for you. One thing that you said to me that really made me think, you said that you video called your grandma and she told you, I'm okay, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So do you feel that that was her passing on a little bit of strength to you, Trishna? Do you think that she may have known and that she's just letting you know that it's okay, be strong?
I can't even tell you how much of a positive person she was. Like, even in the worst situation, she'd always be like, you know, once I failed an exam, and I've never failed an exam, like, at university, and she was like, do you know what, like, you know, that she used to say, these experiences make you stronger. She goes, the next exam you're gonna have like the top marks, like, this is a blessing from God or whatever. And do you know, with her, like, words and what she said that day, that she said, I'll be fine, she just makes you feel like, she makes you believe it. And it's like, okay. And I really believed it. So I think it's like a bittersweet, because I felt like she told me that she's fine and she's okay.
So she's going to be okay.
But then she wasn't. So then it's like, it's awful. But the thing is, she loved family so much, and she loved, like, our house, like my mum and dad, and she was very close to them, and me and my brother. So I feel like we've let her down a bit because we're away from her.
I think, especially for my husband and I, guilt is the hardest part, Trishna, of being an expat, especially when you lose someone.
We just felt she was on her own in India.
Yeah.
But she wasn't, because my dad's cousin was like her eldest son, so she always used to say that. But to not have held her hand in the hospital, to not have, for her to, I know she knew we were there, but to not physically be there, we feel like we've let her down.
I think with this COVID pandemic, Trishna, you know, I heard about lots of people in the UK where, you know, people were not able to go and visit anybody. People were not able to say goodbye. And I can't imagine what that must have been like, to be on either end, you know, whether you're sitting in hospital on your own or whether you're sitting at home in hospital with your loved one. And I think this was a really, really harsh, brutal reality of COVID-19, exactly what it put people through. I mean,
how did you feel? Like, how did you guys find out, or what was it like for you guys? Like, did you have time to prepare? Was it so sudden? Like, what happened, and how was it for you?
Our situation was very sudden. Our dad is extremely healthy. We were just looking forward to the future, you know, like he wasn't old, he was very young, he was very fit, really into his fitness, really into healthy eating. And the only signs that we had was that he, you know, had a backache. But we lost our father my father-in-law due to cancer. So that's it was an unexpected death. We didn't have time to get used to it. We literally had a week to, you know, it was a week where we found out that he was very, very poorly until he passed away. And
is it because of the pandemic that he wasn't able to, or did he avoid going to the doctors with his backache because he was just what was like,
scared of COVID? He was scared of COVID, and I think that was the case for a lot of people. You know, they were scared of COVID, so they didn't want to go to the hospital, and they don't want to deal with any illness that they have because they might be scared that it might be COVID. So that could have been a possibility for Dad, but I wasn't there. This is another thing that we deal with. We actually don't know too much about what happened. We hear from family, you know, this happened, that happened, but we wasn't there to experience it. And I think this kind of guilt does consume us, because it is really difficult for our family in the UK to keep us updated with everything that's happening there. It's hard enough to deal with what's happening there, but it's even harder to find time to update other people. And as much as they try, and as much as we try and connect with them, the distance is there. You don't always get to see everything. You don't always get to feel the vibe, feel what's happening, you know, notice what's going on a daily basis. It's just updates. That's all we can live for, updates on, you know, people's lives. So when my father-in-law passed away, we were able to go back for the funeral.
Did you feel like it helped? Not, I know this is the wrong word, not like with closure, but with having your final goodbyes, because we never got a chance to do anything. So it's a massive hole in our hearts to say, like, we didn't get, like, there's just nothing. There's nothing. How did you feel? Like, did you feel like you did your last prayers, and how did you feel?
I think this kind of thing is a very individual journey. I can only speak for myself on this, not for my husband and not for anyone else. But for me, the fact that I wasn't there when my father-in-law passed away, I will forever struggle with that. And that's one thing that my husband will forever struggle with. We will never, ever make peace with that. We were not there. However, we did get to speak to Dad, before he left. And my father-in-law passed on the greatest gift that he could ever pass on, and he gave us a lot of strength, where he told us that he knows that he will be leaving this earth and he's okay. You know, he told us not to cry, he told us not to be sad, he told us this is just our body, this is just my body, I'm going back to where I belong. That gives us closure, that lets us carry on, because without that, Trishna, I don't know how we would have felt. Without that strength, without that gift, we would be just absolutely lost, to think that we wasn't there, we didn't get to say goodbye, and we had no idea how he probably would, he was feeling towards the end. But so for me and my journey, we consider ourselves extremely blessed that we had such a courageous father-in-law who was able to say these words to us, before he left. For me, that's not closure, but without that, I think we would have struggled. We definitely would have struggled. And I think the only thing that we still have is the guilt of not being home. I think that's the one thing that we can't change now. So we've come back to Dubai, and sometimes we just sit there, my husband, our day, and then something will remind us about Dad, and then we will both go really quiet and think, oh, did we forget? We've just been to the beach, we've had a great day with the kids, and we've had a really good weekend, and then it hits us again. We've said something, we've done something, and everything comes flooding back. And that guilt is something that we struggle with, to think that we're not at home, we're not experiencing what our family's experiencing back home. We're not feeling that. So
it is really difficult.
Yeah, it is really difficult.
As much as like I was away, like we did like a 12-day blessing, which was on Zoom and stuff, so the family like got together, because like I said, our family is really close. But like you said, when you're at a distance, it's not like the physical closeness that you have. Like they got chance to like be, obviously it was limited numbers, but they got chance to be in the house, be there together. I think physically, mentally, knowing that you're near each other, even though people are like, oh, I've had a baby as well, my parents live around the corner, but I think mentally it's a different thing. Like because we're in a different country, you just feel the distance.
Yeah, you
Is that
do.
what you mean? Like you feel like sometimes you're at the beach and stuff, and then you just feel so far away physically.
Very far away. It is. And I said to my husband the other day, like, we should, and it's so easier said than done, we should, when we feel this way, and we are having a hard time talking about dad, and we can talk about dad all day long, and we often talk about memories, but we're missing out sharing that conversation with our loved ones back home. And I say maybe we should call mom, have a chat with her, because mom will make us feel better. We can talk to mom about these memories, and then we'll call mom and we'll just talk about the kids, or we'll talk about the weather, or we'll talk about everything other than that.
Me
Because
too.
it's a really difficult conversation to have. And then you think, we don't know where you are. You might be having a really good day. Are we going to upset you now? Or I like the idea of having the conversation because it's going to make me feel better. But when you see your family, you do not want to bring that topic up because you're scared that it's going to upset them. So I think talking, and Trishna, you and I had this conversation with Dr. Samaa a couple of days ago, and we'll invite her to the chat shortly. Talking is really, really important, as hard as it is, whether it's you and I, whether it's your family, or whether it's
I
a
think it's
professional.
difficult. When you're pregnant as well, like people are like they don't want to upset you too much. So then when we did even have the Zoom chats for the prayers for my grandma, it was like, how's your day been? Like, how's the kids? Hi, and like talking to the kids, and then we'd do the blessing, and then after that we'd just kind of chat again, and obviously we'd do like a cheers and just like say a few words about my grandma, but it was very like a light-hearted kind of thing. And I think me being pregnant as well, people knew how close I was to my gran, so I think they didn't want to like upset me. And then that got into my mind thinking, well, I'm pregnant, keep it to the back of my mind. So since I found out in September, so it's been 7 months now, that's all I've been doing. Back of the mind, like the odd thing we might remember what we do or whatever with my family, and they'll say the odd comment, but I've not really spoken about it because then Ruben came, and then he was the next responsibility of me and Nick, and he just brought so much happiness, and it was so lovely. Like, and you just don't get a chance to like focus because being parents and being new parents, everything's like so new, overwhelming, and you're kind of figuring things out, and again, put it to the back of your mind, put it to the back of your mind, put it to the back of your mind. So now, like when I spoke about it to you, it just literally just kind of came out because I've not spoken about it at all. Even my friends are like, oh, are you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Oh, how's Ruben? Ruben's fine. Oh yeah. And it's like, I just can't, and I think I just didn't want to talk about it, but when he said to join you, I think I was like, I'm not fully ready yet to talk about all the details and everything, but that's just how I feel in terms of just cheated. I think you feel cheated because you think, you know what, I know, and some people are like, no, you can't say that, like, I just know in my heart of hearts that if it wasn't that she went to India, if she didn't do that, she would have lived another 20 years because she had so much life in her. Like, she was so independent, she was so happy, she was so full of life. So even if she did pass away this year of like natural causes, and if she was with my parents, if she was surrounded by family, we wouldn't have felt so bad. But because of the situation, we just feel like, God, 1 minute she's here, 1 minute she's gone, she's been away from the family, we didn't get a chance to say her goodbyes. So I think that's like the hardest thing to process for us about not being able to grieve, because it's like, how can you when you've not had the traditional way of grieving? So yeah, I think that's like the most difficult part, and especially being a new mom, you're thinking, well, everybody wants to ask you about your baby then, and it's like as if like her passing is like the past, which is, people don't mean that, but they just mean that the next thing in your life that's happened is obviously I've had a baby, and then you're meant to be like this happy parent who whatever. And touch wood, I've been okay with like Ruben because Nick's been so supportive, but it's been really difficult because I felt like all my life that my grandma would be there to share this happiness with. So yeah, like that's just super difficult to process. I think that she's not going to see him.
I think this would be a really good time, I think, to invite Dr. Samaa to the stage and see, you know, hear her thoughts. I'll just hi, Dr. Samaa.
Hi.
Hi. So I believe you've been listening behind the stage of our story, especially Trishna's. I mean, we both have very similar experiences of COVID, where we've lost somebody and gained a new, you know, baby at the same time. And I think the one thing that really stands out to me is that there was a very short gap. I mean, you know, did we have an opportunity to grieve? Are we grieving? How important is grieving as well? And how do we do it as expats? I think these are the sort of things that we struggle with. So please, you know, if you can provide your comments, your thoughts on some of the things that Trishna and I have discussed.
Right. Well, to start with, my condolences to Mandy, Trishna, Mary and Bella. I can see from the chat that there are other listeners who also lost dear ones. It is very difficult. It is difficult to lose a relative, but it's also difficult when you're an expat and during the pandemic. So I think your experiences as expats might be shared with people who are living in the same country in the UK, where they couldn't see their relative. They might have been in London and the relative was in Brighton and they couldn't see them. They were almost like expat experience here. And maybe just to go through the stages of grief, because grief is a normal process. It's not an illness, so it's not a mental health problem. I'm a consultant psychiatrist, but it's not an illness, as I said. There are 7 stages of grief. The first one is shock, not believing it's right, or thinking, you know, it's not there, did it happen? There is pain and guilt. Guilt is part of it too. And it's important to recognize that, because you could relate the guilt to being an expat, but even if you lived in the same household, you might feel guilt as well. It's one of the normal stages of grief. There's depression and reflection. Again, it's of course the level of depression, because depression can become pathological depression or a mental health problem. And then there is starting to feel a bit better in control, and the acceptance, having an acceptance and hope. Now, the normal grief takes about 6 months, up to a year. So it's a process. It's not something that's going to go away quickly. Now, I guess the question is, how do we make the best out of it? And I can see we were going to have a talk about life and death, and the overwhelming feelings were about death rather than, you know, the life you all gave birth, which is a great experience. But of course, these are overwhelming feelings that affect us when we do grieve.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there are some traditional things that we underestimate how important they are. For example, the you know, attending a ceremony for the burial, or having a memorial service for somebody, or sitting with relatives who share their own past memories with that person. So when you are in an expat, you will be quite isolated in being able to do that. And why is it important? Like, I don't know, different countries, you know, they have different ceremonies, but, you know, in Egypt, for example, we have 3 days visitation of the family who have lost a relative. And this is important because you meet people, they give you their support, they talk to you about the deceased, and maybe talk about incidences of the deceased, and some memories they had with them. Now, as an expat, how do I make the best out of it? I can't have that as an expat because I'm quite isolated. I think one thing to do is, for example, to actually allocate time in the day where it's like the 1 minute silence, you have like a time in the day when you, maybe your partner, can actually have that space in your life where you, think about your grandparent, or maybe have a chance to look at a photo album, thinking about memories you had with the deceased, but allocating that space. Mandy, you already have another 2 children, so you're a busy mother, and you're away from home, and you're away from your relatives. So I think, allocating that time, maybe when the children have slept, when you think, I'm going to have 10 minutes or 15 minutes thinking about the person who's died. It might be important too, and to have those maybe Zoom meetings with family members where you can talk about nice memories, because it is difficult to talk about the deceased, and it might be, people might avoid altogether talking about them. But you might decide to have a nice theme about it. I have this memory of my grandmother doing this with me, or she, as Trish was saying, her grandmother spoiled her, and she would put all the washing and iron stuff in her, and she remembers that. Little things that actually bring those nice memories about the person who's died are important. And I think, like in some cultures, they wear different dress code. They have a dress code. So for the person who's grieving, they wear black. Now, there are really quite important things about this. Even if one is not very traditional, you might think, actually, there's a value in this, in a person wearing black, because you're really telling people, hey, look at me. I'm actually not in my right state of mind. I am grieving. And I think what Mandy was saying about, you go to the beach with the children in Dubai, and you feel guilty because I didn't make the space for thinking about my my father-in-law, and nobody actually recognized that. In fact, I am grieving, because you might be doing all these things, but somebody meets you and they say, we heard you've lost your father or your nan. My condolences. And the acknowledgement of one's own feelings by somebody else makes you come to terms with the feelings a little bit more. Whereas if you feel that everybody doesn't have a clue what I'm going through, and then you're pretending to be okay, and you're not able to confront and access your own feelings, makes it more difficult. So I think talking about it, making your space for your feelings, to think and to talk to other members of your family about it is really quite important. And not to avoid, because the more you avoid talking and addressing your feelings, the longer they will stay, and they will be there. It's not that they're not going to go away.
See, Dr. Samaa, do you know when you said to talk about it, I'm very a strong person. I never get upset or emotional about anything. But when it comes to discussing about my gran, I don't know. I just start filling up. I just as much as I want to talk about it, I feel like I struggle to talk about it, if that makes sense. And then I don't want to look upset and then upset other people, because I know if I talk to my aunt or my parents, it's going to upset them to see me upset.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh no, you're a new parent, your child needs you as a mother. Not in that way, but they say it as in no, don't be upset, because Ruben will need you, and be happy. And it kind of defeats the object of being able to talk about it. So how
Thanks, Trish. I think you have to choose the right time when you are able to do that. Don't push yourself in doing something where you're not ready for it. And other members of the family are ready for it too. So I sometimes see children where their dad died, and they are not even talking about their dad at all. And sometimes the mothers get really quite upset. How can they not talk about the dad? And then, 3-4 months after that, the child starts talking about the dad, or gets a photo album and talks about the dad who died. So I think you need to be ready for it, and other members of the family need to be ready for it as well.
Okay.
And maybe when you talk about good memories, and other people will also talk about good memories with a person, you might feel more able to actually address it and deal with it. It's easier to run away from something than actually to confront it, but the time of the confronting the problem is important. So when you feel, now I'm ready, to actually talk about it, then address it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that does make sense to me. And Trishna, from the conversations that we've had, when I invited you to this talk, you did say, I think I might be ready for this. I'm not sure, but I think I might be. And I think that's the first step, where you think that you're actually going to give it a go and you're going to try, and it doesn't feel as painful as you thought it was going to be. I think that's probably the first step. Like Trishna, for you, this is probably the first step that you've taken to actually address your feelings and, talk to someone other than Nick at home. For me, definitely. I mean, the only person I speak to is my husband, and vice versa, and family here and there. But as expats, I think it is really important, if I go out and meet friends, it's okay to speak, because these are the people that I see on a regular basis, on a daily basis, and your expat friends do become your family. So I think that's one thing that I will take away from this, Dr. Samaa, is that it's okay to talk. It's okay to just mention, who passed away and a memory that came up. It's not something that you solely have to keep inside because your family is not here. We are here. We have made family here we see on a regular basis, and it's okay to have these conversations.
I just feel like like obviously having a baby, like that feeling of just having a chat about the baby, feeling about the baby, like that's just superseded because you're so sad about the loss that you can't just be like, I know like the chat was about life and death, but I feel like with like Ruben, like because I've had the support of Nick and it's been like amazing, and it's not like it's been
That's the easy part.
Yeah, I feel like that's what I'm saying exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. I feel like that's been the easy part, even though parenting is so difficult. I feel like the grieving part just made everything like it was just so hard, and it's still so hard to get my head around it, that I feel like I don't know when I'll be able to feel better, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think this, even with this talk, it was, it's named Life and Death, and the one thing that we focused on, unintentionally, was the death aspect of it, and that does make me think, because I remember when my father-in-law did pass away, and everything shifted for me. I was still looking forward to having the baby, but that joy wasn't there as much anymore. It did strip back a little bit. It does change everything, and I think death definitely did for me hit me a lot harder than having a baby.
100%.
I think whether that's the transition page, whether we're still going through the grieving process, I don't know. I don't know what this means, but definitely struggled with the death side of it a lot more than I thought I would.
I actually feel after what you've said, Dr. Samaa, like about choosing a time in the day, that's actually really going to help me. And even with you saying that, I just feel like, I don't know, a little bit of like weights lifted off my chest a little bit, like speaking about it, and you saying that, because I feel sometimes when family are like, no, they've gone now, you've got to let them go, and you can't be upset because they've gone to their place where they belong, and all these things. But feeling like I can, taking that time out in the day and just thinking, and that moment of silence, it just gives you that peace of mind and just a little bit of calm, and it changes your thought process on, rather than feeling the feeling of pain and then just pushing it back in again, thinking I don't want to think about it. So I'll definitely try that.
Yeah. And I think if we had like a support group, of actually, because I can see that there are other listeners here who have gone through similar experiences. I mean, the thing about being an expat as well is, not only you don't have the family support system, but also your friendship circle might be coming and going, and they leave the country. They're all new friendships because the friendships are not, people travel and change all the time. So, however, if you have a common theme and you have like a support group of other mothers or other, people who have left, who have lost relatives abroad, you can actually, it's helpful to talk to people who've gone through similar experiences. And that applies to lots of other conditions where people find it really helpful because they know exactly what you're talking about. Like I think from the chat, you can see that some people are also saying, I've gone through a very similar thing.
Yeah,
so that helps.
And I definitely agree with you there, Dr. Samaa, because Trishna, you don't know this, but when you shared your story with me, you made me feel that I'm not alone. You made me feel that me and my husband here are not alone. So I just want to let you know that I'm incredibly grateful that you spoke to me, because everything that we had been feeling, I realized that you're also going through the same thing. And we've got a lot of listeners, people tuned in watching this right now, and I can promise you that you've probably made them feel the same, that they're not alone. It's something that a lot of us have gone through. We're just not speaking about it enough. So I right now want to thank you so much for sharing your story, Trishna. You've been extremely brave, and you've definitely helped. I probably wouldn't have had this conversation with anyone at all ever had you not had been, willing to open up and share your story with me and for everybody watching today. We've had a lot of questions, but this has gone over a lot longer than it was, supposed to. So I will share at the end of this Trishna's contact details with everybody tuned in, and also with Dr. Samaa. So if anyone's got any questions or would like to continue, this conversation with them, they will have your details.
Yeah,
Dr. Samaa, thank you so
to
much.
message me on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say one thing. Like, I think being public and like feeling tearful and crying, you feel like embarrassed about it and you feel stupid. So I feel like saying, oh, like sorry for like being upset and sorry for crying and stuff, because you feel, I think society makes you feel like, oh my God, she's crying. Like, it's just obviously like the pain that's been held in. So that's why sometimes I don't want to talk about it. But thank you for like welcoming me, and thank you for like making me feel like so much lighter, and thank you for the advice, Dr. Samaa. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Samaa. Honestly, there's a lot of food for thought there, and think there is a lot that we can do here. Definitely something that I will think about. Trishna, thank you, and thank you everybody for watching in and sharing your stories on the chat. I would definitely share your contact details with everybody. Have a good evening, and
thank you so
we'll
much.
see each other soon. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.